start your day. Fabulously flawed, we're lighting the way. Monday to Friday, new episodes with laughter and love. Let's start the show. We're shaking things up. Don't let anyone dull your sparkle. Motivation, inspiration, and fun. Fabulously flawed, everyone. So shine a little brighter. Grab your smile and sing along. The show's about to start with Marni, your host. You can't go wrong.
Fabulously Flawed friends, welcome to Fabulously Flawed. I'm your host Marni, and it's Wednesday where I love to give my words of wisdom Wednesday and just let you all know it's okay not to be okay, that you are not alone and we are in this together. There is no such thing as perfection, which is why we are fabulously flawed. Today's episode I am calling What Are the Warning Signs? Because yesterday I spoke about kids and mental health. There's teenagers. I pray to God there's no young children, but the statistics, I think this was maybe 3 years ago, where 1 in 5 teens experience a mental health disorder each year. And I think as time has gotten more present, I'm going to assume it's probably 1 in 3 possibly. And sadly enough, statistic-wise, suicide is the second leading cause of death between 15 and 24-year-olds globally around the world. And there's ways this is when I love to say, start before we're even ready. Because the minute in 2019, when I shared about my depression and my anxiety, somebody from NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness, approached me and asked if I wanted to be certified and share my story and ending the silence and ending the stigma. And I was like, I've never really spoken about this before. But even through my nerves and not knowing what the heck I was doing other than learning about warning signs and risk factors, even though I wasn't confident with myself, somebody heard that message 7 years ago. So even more, it's just so much more important. It's always been important, but I think people are now starting to realize about their mental health and everything. And I was just saying that, I kind of went off topic, but I started this before I was ready. So whenever you want to know when you should start, now is the right time. And aside, now back to my statistics, with anxiety and depression over the past, it says right here, 4 years, 20%. It is over the past 4 years, anxiety and depression has increased over 20% with teens. And the isolation with social media, obviously I can see they're linked to higher rates of mental health issues, not only teenagers, but I think all of us pretty much. I know if I was in high school or in my early 20s and I knew and social media was around, I don't know how I would have handled that. That would have been really fucked up, because my self-esteem would have been contingent upon why I didn't get likes, how fat I probably thought I was. I've told this story when I was 15 in high school. At the end of the day, and I'm going on this, I'm not going off topic. There's a reason why I'm talking about this as far as social media. When I was 15, they threw hundreds and hundreds of papers, like 200-300 papers everywhere. And I saw everybody's like reading, what is this list? And it was 161 ways to describe Marni M. Now, that was me. Like, I'm looking going, wait, that's me. Now, if this were social media, that would have been retweeted or Instagrammed, whatever, 161,000 times, who knows? But it would have friggin' killed me. It would have killed me. And what we all have to know is that what we see, number one, just how social media has played a part in what I believe is amplified a lot of inner turmoil and bullying that was still there. But the amount that we can limit social media on the people we follow, if that's possible to do, with teens, it's so sad because less than 50% of them, they will have a mental health condition, but they don't get appropriate treatment. People are in denial, parents are in denial, and early intervention is truly the best protection, best prevention. Early intervention is the best prevention. I'm so glad I took my daughter at 16 when I noticed, and her teacher noticed there's something a little bit off. Maybe you should have her tested. And when I took Taylor, my daughter, to get tested for ADHD, it was wonderful because I saw where she was lacking, but also I was sitting there going, wait, that's me too. Like, I have every one of these symptoms. And then myself at 47 went and became diagnosed. But what we can do for our teenagers, if you know a teen, if you know someone that has children, it doesn't matter what the age, there's risk factors and there's warning signs. The risk factor, I'm going to be a little bit trigger warning here. Some of these things are for suicide prevention as well, to look out for signs of teens that are struggling immensely today. If there was a situation where they studied for a test, they studied, and they just, it was contingent about maybe going to rewarding at home or something, and he studied and it became like a C or a D. Now, the normal response, of course, would be to be sullen and sad for, a couple days or whatever it may be. But when you see someone taking it to a different level, lasting more than 2 weeks over situations that would deserve a typical reaction going in the other way, and opening that line of communication with our kids is so important, without them feeling judged, without them having you truly listen to your children or a child who comes to you and listen and validate. I understand that is totally fine. You feel that way. I understand you feel that way, and create that safe space for them to talk to you. Because the best suicide prevention, I believe, is parents letting children be exactly the authentic person that they want to be. Trying to tell them to be something that they're not leads to anxiety and depression, and sadly, sometimes suicide. And I did this to my daughter. When I looked at her and her body image, I just, I would say, no, go take that off. And I realized I was becoming my mother. And that's when I went to therapy with Taylor, aside from her being diagnosed a different time. This was before she was diagnosed with ADHD. We were already in therapy together. And ever since then, since she's 16 in 10 years, I will never say anything about physical, what she wears. I just tell her to be healthy. That's all I care about, is just be healthy. And somebody's weight is probably the most uninteresting thing about a person. So I have learned, because I grew up in a world that you had to be pretty, you had to be thin, and you had to be as perfect as possible for love. And I was like, I'm not doing that to my kid. Hell no. So the another thing that is so important and is letting all of us understand, children, adults, teenagers, everything on social media is fake. You have a depressed teenager that's coming to you and they're saying our life sucks because, you know what, the Joneses down the street, they're going on vacation. Our life sucks because did you see the pool they have? Our life sucks because we don't have those nice clothes. One, you're blessed because you woke up in the morning, you ate, you have food, you have a car, you have shelter, you have stability that some people don't have. But there are people that look at other people's lives and then you're like, mine sucks. And you cannot be grateful and be bitter at the same time. You cannot do that. You can be healing and feel sadness and hopeful at the same time, but you cannot be bitter and grateful at the same time. So you got to learn to appreciate and love every single thing that you have, because those are blessings. And what you see, it's fake, fake, fake. You watch the people doing those fake pictures, and then all of a sudden that fun girl group in the picture, then they all disperse right after. It's all fake. And you're so many people, not only teenagers, we all take it to heart. I've had to learn. I'm in my lane. I'm just truly doing better than I was yesterday. I look at my videos on TikTok and I was like, wow, this got so many views, better than it did yesterday. Wow, this week was really good. Thank you, TikTok. I do not look at anybody else's stuff, anybody else's anything. I noticed this with my own son when he was about 11, 12. He would come home from school. Yeah, he might have been 12. And he would watch the end of Titanic every day. the end, the boat collapsing, and 9/11, the plane crashing. And I'm like, isn't that odd? And then I realized that was his way of expressing his emotions as far as what he was feeling internally. And I was spot on. So us as parents, as caregivers, and whomever, we have to really watch what our kids are, pay attention to their feelings. And I know it's so hard because typical teenagers, how's your day? Good. This, they don't talk anyway. So it's really important. How are things really? Like, how are you? How are you really doing? You can talk to me without shame, without judgment. I'm here to listen to you. And starting off right there, knowing there's a safe space, or encouraging your child to find someone, getting them a therapist, a school counselor. Be proactive with the teacher. Your child may have learning disabilities, and that's a risk factor for some things, but you can be proactive and say, you know what? And teach your child too. Look, okay, my daughter, I'm trying to go in the same place here. When she was put on medication, she was given extra time for her SATs and everything, and it was wonderful. And some kids I know were ashamed to do that because they're like, I don't want people to know. Do you think anyone gives a rat's ass where you're taking your SATs? I'm pretty sure they're focused on their own testing. But you have to teach yourself and your child that nobody gives a fuck. Basically, if you need to sit closer to understand what the teacher's saying, then you need to advocate for your child and do that. And your child has to understand, who cares? Yeah, I need to see better. I want to get good grades. Okay, like whatever. And we have to, I make it sound so easy to ignore what people say. And I know we're talking about kids, but we have to really let them know nobody is watching their life. They are just they have to just focus on them, and there's no shame in saying, hey, can I talk to someone? I'm not feeling myself. I'm having a lot of nerves. I'm feeling anxious. I'm not able to sleep. When you really start to pay attention, whether they sit at the table for dinner, for example, and then immediately get up and withdraw from the room, and you don't see them until they go to school the next day, which is not the typical behavior. So when you pay attention to these things, and especially, most importantly, if they talk about they feel they shouldn't be here, they're a burden, if you hear any kind of suicidal talk, do not leave anyone alone. Tell them, call 988. That is the crisis lifeline right there. But when you hear somebody saying those things, don't just put it off like, oh, they're just looking for attention. Nobody just says things like that. If they start drawing pictures, morbidity, pay attention to what your typical child does versus now, wait, that's a little different from the normal awkwardness. And there are lives that can be saved. You just have to talk to your child, and everyone has to know it's okay not to be okay. We are human beings, and if we don't have to walk around suffering, the world's already hard enough. If we can have some peace in our lives, whether it's through medication or therapy, whatever, then it's there for us. I did not know about this my whole life. So if I would have known that it's okay not to be okay, I could reach out for help. I probably wouldn't have had 5,500 nervous breakdowns in the past 10 years. You know what I mean? So anyway, guys, on that note, wow, I was just going on and on this one. Have a wonderful Wednesday. Remember, you can find me on YouTube, Fabulously Flawed, and my book, True to Myself, on Amazon, and Shop Marni Inspires on my TikTok shop. And remember, there was a lady wearing a dress at the Met Gala that had bubbles everywhere that was blowing bubbles, like hundreds of bubbles on her dress, blowing bubbles. So when I say never let anyone burst your bubble, she definitely got that memo. And to never, ever, 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 ever let anyone dull your sparkle. I am sending you guys so much love and so much peace.
Thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Fabulously Flawed. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, we're so glad you're here, and we hope you'll come back Monday through Friday for another serving of empowerment, motivation, and inspiration. We'll catch you next time on Fabulously Flawed.